In this lecture, we are going to place some text and a list into our application. And remember that this is the app that we are building in this course. And so the main part here is basically this list of facts. So in this lecture, we will now start building this list. So each of these facts has this text here and then also this category. Okay, so let's do that. Now the data here will come from this data.js file that was included in the starter files. So we placed that into our project folder in the last lecture. And so now just go ahead and open it up. So here we have these three facts, 1, 2, and 3. And each of it has all of this data. But mainly we're now interested here in this text. So let's copy the text and move back here to index.html. So let's create some space here, and then let's create our next HTML element. And since we are dealing with text, let's create a paragraph element. So that's the element that I showed you actually in the first lecture of this section. Right, so here we have this paragraph, and let's also get the other text. So for this second fact, and then we create another paragraph. All right, give it a save, and then you see that prettier, so that extension that we installed in the first section automatically formatted our code here. Okay, so let's go back, make it a bit smaller again, and let's reload. And indeed, here are our two paragraphs. And you see they are nicely separated by the space, which the browser automatically created because these are paragraphs. Okay. But now if we go back here, or actually we cannot really see it. But anyway, remember that we had these categories here, right? So let's get the text for each of these. So this one is called technology, and I will place it here and maybe place it between some special symbols. So this here has nothing to do with HTML. These are just some symbols I'm using here to make this text stand out a bit. Now remember how the category actually is its own element. So now we can't really see it, but so here it is. So the technology here should be its own element, right? And so, what can we do here? Well, let's first try another paragraph, which is not really legal actually inside of HTML. So we cannot place one paragraph inside another one, but let's see what happens. Okay. And just like before, we could now simply manually reload the page, but we can also do something better, which is to now use the live server extension that we installed in our setup lecture. So that's very easy. All we have to do is to click the Go Live button down here. Then wait a second, and here it is. So it's the exact same page as before, but before we were basically loading it from this file directly, while now it's basically coming from a fake web server. So a local web server that runs on our computer. And so this enables some cool things. So watch what happens when I now change something here on the page. Let's say this. And now when I save it, then you see immediately this page got automatically reloaded, reflecting these latest changes. And of course, if I put it back, then it goes away. But actually what I'm interested in here is that this text here, so this technology, is now on a separate line, where in fact I actually want it to be right here. So instead of using the p element, which basically creates a new line whenever we create a new element, we can also use span. Give it a save, and now it is back here where it belongs. So span is basically a generic piece of text, but which doesn't create a new line. So it looks actually here as if it is not inside of any element, but it is. And so by doing that, we can then later style it using CSS as a separate piece of content from this. Okay, then let's do the same with the other one here. And also create a span element right here inside the paragraph. No, that's not correct. So society, and also give it these extra symbols here to make it look a little bit different. Okay, so we're already looking pretty good here, but we can actually do better. So if we think about it, our facts here are basically a big list of facts. So a list which contains all of these facts, right? So what we should actually do is to create a list inside of HTML where we then place basically these paragraphs. And that's very important because HTML is all about semantics. And with semantics, we simply mean that we should always use the HTML elements which has exactly the same meaning of the content that we are trying to display. So in this case, we know that we have a list of paragraphs, and therefore we should actually place them inside a list, even if the visual output will be the same. So let's create that list, but it is not called a list, not like this. It is called UL, which stands for unordered list. Okay, and then for each element of the list, so each list item, we need to create a LI element. And then inside the LI is where we place whatever content needs to be inside of this list item. So again, inside the UL, we can only have LIs, so list items. We cannot place, for example, the paragraph right here into the list. That's not allowed. So we want this to be a list item, so we need to tell the browser and we need to tell HTML that this is a list item by placing it inside the list item element. Okay, and let's do another one for this other paragraph. So you see we are creating really a nested structure here of HTML elements, and that's just completely normal. So when we save it now, you see that it actually does look here like a list, but later on we will remove that styling. So you see that here it is basically simply a list of boxes, right? So without the bullet points. But the default styling of HTML is to give it these bullet points so that we can easily identify that it is a list. But what matters the most here for us is, again, the semantic meaning. So telling HTML and the browser that this is a list. And it's important to do that so that, for example, screen readers, which blind people use to navigate the web, can exactly identify what we have on our page. So it makes it possible for example, blind people to navigate our pages without any accessibility issues. All right, so we're making great progress. Let's take a break and continue in the next lecture.